Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves to go to Toontown. It's Frank. How are you today?
I am doing Toontastic. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Get out of my way. I don't work for you Toons.
I'll never work for a Toon.
Yeah, never. I'm doing well, Frank. I'm here on Beer with Geeks to drink some beer and talk geeky things with you as we do every week, and it's exciting. Frank, but before we get into what we're talking about, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a coffee stout. I am drinking a coffee stout.
I love a good coffee stout. Mm-hmm.
I know you do. I'm drinking a Masthead coffee stout from Cleveland. It is
nicest city in the world, so says Liz Lemon.
That's what she says. You know,
yeah.
You always wish you were back in the Cleve or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
It's good though. It's good. It's a delicious coffee stout. They partnered with 6-Shooter Coffee and made this really nicely balanced, smooth coffee stout. Honestly, it's about as good a stout as you could ask for. I guess it's not even a critique. It's just like I would love a nitro version of it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Why do you want a nitro version of it, actually?
I like the texture of a nitro beer. Like, it's just so like velvety and smooth. Like the bubbles are much smoother than like a carbonated beer. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love a good nitro. Like my go-to for these things is Left Hand nitro milk stout. Always enjoy that.
Is that because you're left-handed?
Yes. Number one, first of all, yes, nailed it.
Yep.
That's A. B is yeah. I like the taste and the texture of it. And the nitro lends a lot of good stuff to that. So yeah, but this Masthead coffee stout is A+. If you can get your hands on it, I say go for it. I found a different beer store in my local area that has a huge variety that I hadn't checked out before. So I popped in and found some stuff I wouldn't normally find, like this Masthead. So there you go. Highly recommend.
Nice. Very good. I am finishing up. It's been a long time coming. I'm finishing up my Von Trapp beer collection.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm down to 2. So this one and one more. So this is the Berliner Weisse style, which I've said before. It's fine. It's not great. It's a little too carbonated. Actually, it wasn't until you started talking about nitro on this episode I couldn't exactly figure out what it was that it's fine. I wasn't loving it. I would drink it, and if somebody offered me, I would drink it again. But I don't know if I'd rush out and buy it again.
All right, fair.
I like some of the other styles that they offer because I like Von Trapp. I just don't. I think this one is one of their weaker ones, but I think it's a little too carbonated.
Yeah, I mean that can do. I mean the mouthfeel. I hate that phrase. It's so pretentious.
It's gross.
But
yeah.
It's gross.
It's gross.
But it's the word. But like yeah, the mouthfeel does go pretty far with these things, and it can kind of make or break it's as important as the flavor in a lot of cases for your enjoyment of the beer. Like if you don't like the way a beer tastes, you're obviously not going to drink it. If you don't like the way it feels in your mouth physically, you're also probably not going to drink it. So I hear you on that.
Yep. Yeah, so it's okay. But like I said, it's my last one of this one. So then I'm moving on to bigger and better things. Potentially. Could be I could be moving on to smaller and worse things.
Oh, I hope
I
not.
really don't know.
Well,
but now that we're really in winter, I got to get me some coffee stouts.
yeah. This is the time. It
Mm-hmm.
is. We are deep in the time when you're really gonna. We're really close to when things are gonna start turning around, and then it's gonna be late spring, and you're like, I'm finishing my last coffee stout.
That's what I'm doing. Well, what if I only get like 3 or
That's
something like
great.
that?
Great, but I'm just
you
saying.
know, I won't buy
based
that
on recent-
36 pack of coffee stout.
Based on recent patterns, you're like, I just finished my last Sam Summer just in time for Christmas.
Yep. Well, I have found that I don't know if I just save the beer for the show, but I very rarely have one outside of the show now.
Yeah.
And just because, got to watch them carbs, and other things, but I'm just not having as many as I used to. My liver says thank you.
Yeah, right.
But it just takes. I just have to get less of the same kind when I go out, because otherwise I'm gonna be like, here I am drinking Porch Rocker a year later.
So that's funny because you've hit on something that I'm finding too, where I try to save a beer. Like if I buy a 4-pack or a 6-pack of something, I save one of them to drink on Beer with Geeks, right? Like so I can have the rest, but I want to make sure I save one to drink while we're talking. And I'll sometimes find myself in the situation where maybe there's like a build your own 6-pack situation. So I've gotten one of each of 6 different beers, and now I'm like, oh, well, now I have to save these for. I guess I have to save these for the show, or do I? Like, I'm sitting there like, and it's like it's a rule I made up. Like no one's gonna care other than me.
No one's knocking down our doors. The podcast police,
it's
like
the dumbest thing. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not allowed to drink this unless we're podcasting. Like, no, that's what is you buy another one. If anything, like, who cares?
We have never said to each other, oh, like save one for the show, or you have to drink a beer while we're recording, nope. These are the arbitrary rules that we have made up that we've never discussed, but yet we somehow made up the same one.
Yes.
and we stick to it. Maybe I was gonna say maybe that's because like we're because of COVID and distance and stuff, we do this, we don't always do this together like we used to. Right. And so it harkens back to a simpler time when we could gather in the same room and share beer with one another. And we would be having each other's beer. Like I wouldn't bring beer to have on my own. So we would actually go through it faster.
That's true. Right. Because like we would bring beer to each other's houses or whatever and be like, oh, have you tried this one? And we wouldn't just drink the one while we were talking. We'd like have dinner and hang out and have a few, and like the podcast was only part of our night of hanging out.
Yeah, and now our hanging out is just the podcast in some ways, which is why you have this almost 10-minute opening of us
as a gift from us to you.
Us sad white men being like, remember when we used to hang out before time? Like, do you remember that? Anyway. Frank, I don't think it's appropriate for you to fart on the podcast, however musical it is.
I mean, if anything, this is more.
That's true. That's like you trying to hide a fart, like
by scratching a record.
Yeah, let's close up shop. Anyway, Frank, I say this humor because it's rather cartoony, right? Fart jokes are rather they are rather of the animated cartoon style, and I think that's wonderful. And I think there's something else.
Yeah, let me tell you why it's wonderful. Been wanting to do that for so long. It's been like 2 years since we last did that. So if you've been listening to Beer with Geeks for a while, you know that Tim and I used to do this recurring bit called Let Me Tell You Why It's Wonderful, where one of us would throw out a movie to the other and say, hey, you've got to watch this movie. Usually when it started, it was, this movie's pretty bad, but let me tell you why it's actually wonderful.
Right.
You showed me Judge Dredd under that pretense.
Judge Dredd, Lake Placid.
Lake Placid. I was like, what? Not Lake George. What is it? Lake Placid.
Lake George.
I was like, what?
Not
what
Lake Placid. That much of a better title
I
for
mean,
a movie about a crocodile in Maine, but still.
I showed you Xanadu and Tron Legacy under that.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back and find those episodes if that's something you're interested in. But I don't know if this is one I would say is actually a bad movie that I'm saying is wonderful despite its flaws. I actually think this is a fun movie. And it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Me. I did it, Frank.
I
am Christopher Lloyd. So, Frank, I had never seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I know is a very odd, like, blank, like, it's like I don't know how, like, I could tell you exactly how I skipped over it. The 80s is a period of movies to which I have not really seen. I just haven't.
We were very young. I mean, just barely born at the end of the 80s.
That's right.
So it's not something that we have nostalgia for in the same way that many others of our many other like people of a geeky persuasion would. A lot of it is like just before our time.
That's right. And our parents were of the age where they weren't really watching that stuff either at the time it was coming out. So like the whole family missed it.
Exactly.
And I just never went back to watch it. Though on watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit now, like going back and watching it for this episode, I've definitely have seen the ending.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah. Like the last 15 minutes. I didn't see the rest of it. I've never seen the rest of it, but I've definitely seen the last 15 minutes.
So like the whole,
I don't know why.
The whole like Toontown bit then? Like when he goes and gets into Toontown?
No, just the bit in the warehouse at the end.
Okay.
So spoilers for Roger Rabbit moving forward. So, but like I knew Christopher Lloyd was the bad guy the whole time because I remembered him having red cartoon eyes.
Okay.
And him being like, you know, I'm the one that killed your brother, you know, blah, blah, whatever. And that, but I mean, like, obviously he's the bad guy. I mean, he shows up and I'm like, well, you're evil.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, like this,
he's wearing all black. He's wearing that hat and like his hair, like under the hat is like shaved, like completely.
That's right.
Like it's just,
he's got a skull on top of his cane and he like kills a cartoon in front of everybody.
Right.
And no. Right.
He spends a couple minutes telling us how he like has developed this method for killing cartoons. Like, oh, okay. Big bad guy energy.
That's right. Oh, wicked. And so it was really more about how did Roger get framed than who framed.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's more about how did he do it, not who did it.
Yeah. So how did you come to this movie? Because you are a little younger than me, so this would have been outside of the realm of movies that maybe you had watched when you were a kid. So how did you come to this?
Yeah, for sure. It's not one that I watched in childhood. It's not one that I watched before the last decade. I think I saw it on Netflix. Honestly, I think it was just
really
on Netflix. Maybe in the early-ish days of Netflix, back in the disc days of Netflix, not early-ish, early days of Netflix. Yeah. I think was when I was like, oh yeah, like I was working through gaps in my movie education, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, like the 80s are definitely a blind spot for me as well. And so, it made its way onto my list. I don't think I even watched it until a few years after that, even. But I watched it on streaming Netflix, so after the discs were gone. But that's what sort of made me think, like, I really got to watch this movie. I built out a list of movies I needed to see, and this was one of them. And so, yeah, I watched it just a handful of years ago, and really, really, I mean, it's the thing about it to me that is the most, because I don't have the childhood nostalgia attached to it, the thing that really like stood out to me is the unbelievable fact that you have this very rare combination of all of these studios who own all of these animated characters who allowed them all to be in this one film. Something that only you know Spielberg and Zemeckis could probably have pulled off.
I I mean, I knew that, say, like Mickey Mouse and Daffy Duck and Donald Duck, and um, not Millicent Cow, not Little Bo Peep either. Oh gosh, what is her
Betty
name?
Boop.
Betty Boop. Thank you. Like I knew that like there would be a lot of them combined in there, but I was really taken aback on how well everybody played off of one another. Like I loved like Bugs and Mickey skydiving together, and it's like they felt like old friends, even though like they're just old friends to me, but also to each other. Donald and Daffy having a rivalry that we like all knew that like they would have anyway, but we got to see that play out. I really enjoyed the mixture of characters. I really also enjoyed the mixture of genres because it is like it's hardcore gumshoe noir.
Yes.
But it's also slapstick comedy, but it's played so earnestly because Bob Hoskins just plays it like he's going for the Oscar. He plays it so straight up until the end, which makes his turn so wonderful because he's the straight man that goes zany. Yeah, it was I just couldn't get over how well crafted it was. I mean, it's Zemeckis, so like it's well crafted. It was better handled than I expected it to be. Like I thought that Roger Rabbit was going to be a slightly overhyped. Like I was like, yeah, all right, yeah. Like it's it's the animation and the cartoon animation and the real world's coming together, blah blah blah. But it's also like it's a weird like love letter to Hollywood, but it's also a huge dig at Hollywood at the same time. It's a movie about the danger of progress and how awful it is. Like
freeways.
Right, the evil like Christopher Lloyd's evil plan is modern day Los Angeles.
Yes. He's Robert Moses. The villain in this movie is Robert Moses.
That's
he's just
good.
we're gonna build highways.
No, but like he's like, it's like the traffic jams will be a thing of the past. Like ironically, LA has like the worst traffic jams in the country.
Yes,
like that's. And they're all like, and because this movie's came out in 88, like they're obviously directly jabbing at 80s LA. And I loved that so much because I love that I came to this movie as an adult instead of a kid, because that's not something that you'd get as a kid. But I was like, I'm getting this on, I understand this movie on as an adult, and I think I appreciate it more as an adult than I would have as a kid.
I certainly do. I certainly feel that way. Yeah. I think as a kid it would have been like, okay, this is fun, but I liked it better when it was Mickey and when it was Daffy and Donald doing the piano fight rather than like these boring adults talking. Like that would have been my take as a kid, right?
That's right.
But
I mean, that's what movies are. We pay to go watch people talk, to have a conversation.
Yes, but as a kid, I'm there
to
to see the cartoon characters like fight or whatever.
That's right. You're there to watch dueling pianos with Daffy and Donald.
Exactly. I'm there to see, someone get an anvil dropped on them.
Correct.
But as an adult, it is like, exactly what you said, where you get this, you understand it on like 3 or 4 different levels. Like you can appreciate the dueling pianos stuff and the slapsticky stuff. You can appreciate the this Sam Spade sort of noir plot. You can appreciate the references, the meta references, the self-referential stuff. You can appreciate it all for how all of those things work separately, and then most especially in this movie, how they all work together and how they all interact. How you get all of that stuff in one film, oftentimes all those things in one scene, and it's a really nice synthesis of all those things.
It is. It is. I mean, I was even struck by like the second class citizenship of Toontown, of the Toons, right? Because this is a big thing in a big thing in noir, especially city noir, where it's like, oh, you don't go to that sector, you don't go to that corridor, right? That's controlled by the so and so. This
Suicide Slum or whatever.
Suicide
right? Like,
Slum, Hell's Kitchen,
Yes,
the blah blah blah. You don't go to Toontown, and there's like a complete inversion of that. It's like, and it's everything. Like you go into the dark tunnel only to be hit in the face with the sun,
Yes.
right? And song and laughter. It's like the opposite of what it would be. But this is underlying like current of racism, because like they're second class citizens. They're not seen as the same. Valiant used to be the gumshoe for the Toons, right, until his brother is killed by one of them. So it makes it personal, which I really liked. That was, that's such a noir thing. Like, I used to be good, but then my brother died.
Yes,
and
yes,
now
yes.
I'm not good. I'm like, yeah, And so, but things you couldn't even get away in 80s movies. Now, the first time you see Valiant, he's drinking some turkey.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, you don't do that now.
I know. He's drinking the wild turkey. They make a joke about like, what, did you change your name to Jack Daniels? Like they make reference to it. It's
good. It plays into the period, and I like that. I like that a lot. But anyway, this whole movie is really like about Hollywood like emancipating the Toons to have control over the studio, right? Because that's what is it Maroon that dies, or is it Acme?
Acme is the one who dies, who leaves the will behind and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. So the Acme, company, like, which I love because that's that's all Toons, right? And I love that in the 80s. Like that's an awesome thing. Then you have like this like third wave feminism thing going on with Jessica Rabbit, where like she's kind of the femme fatale, but she really is in control of almost everything the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I was expecting to cringe at Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah.
I was not anticipating her being such a strong character. Kind of in the way that like a lot of noir characters are strong. She actually reminded me of. Oh shoot! I got to look up the movie. I'm going to use my one look up. Talk while I.
I agree with you. I when I rewatched it for this conversation, I didn't quite remember how they dealt with that character. And I remember it's still a little cringe. Some of it is, absolutely. Some of especially the physicality of that character is a little cringe in the way that they portray her. But you're right that it was very much trying to be like, look, it's 1988. We're going to put a modern for the time, modern spin and modern face on this. So she's not just going to be the femme fatale. She's not just she will have agency. As much as she would have had were this movie made in 2021, no, and that's unfortunate and that's a problem, and it's okay to talk about it. But more than I would have expected and more than I frankly remembered. And it's something that continues throughout. There is this palpable mistrust, for example, between Valiant and her, where he doesn't trust her the whole way through. Even at the very end, where she's like, I just shot the bad guy and you still don't trust me? Because he is playing into that trope of like, she's, everything was fine until she walked in, like they're playing into that trope, and they veer away from it, but they make they seed enough of it that the audience still thinks like, okay, at some point she's going to turn out to be the bad guy, or she's going to be in league with the bad guy. And they never go in that direction. They fake us out.
Right. It was actually kind of reminded of so the movie I was thinking of, I was kind of thinking of Mildred Pierce.
Okay.
So she has this like she has this I can do it, like I could do it on my own kind of thing. I don't need no man, except that she's always trying to rescue her man in some way, which is the nice inversion.
Yes. I like that. That's a good observation.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember the other movie that I was thinking of. Keep talking. I gotta find it.
Okay.
I'm using your lookup.
Use my lookup. That's fine. Yeah. Another thing that I really enjoy about this movie is I love that it's not just okay, we got a bunch of these characters together. Like they are not just it's not like you have, okay, there's a Mickey scene and then there's a Daffy scene and then there's a Bugs Bunny scene. In so many cases they are together. They're talking to each other. They're in the same frame and having a conversation together. And I just don't know. I don't think it's ever been done before. I don't know if it'll ever be done again. I would love to see them. If they're going to do Hollywood reboots, let's do a reboot of this one, because I could certainly stand for that. It very much makes me to bring a comic book connection into it. It very much brings me into the mindset of the comic crossovers of the, I guess it was 90s, like the Amalgam Comics era, where you had stories that were the Justice League and the Avengers working together, and you've got that famous image. The one that comes to my mind is like the one where it's Superman wielding both Cap's shield and Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. That's a cover of one of those, but an agreement between studios or comic book companies, whatever, an agreement between these companies to create something together, to use their intellectual property and put them together to create something really special, and the result is something really special and something that's really unique and memorable, and the fact that they went beyond. It's not just Looney Tunes and Disney. It's not just Mickey and Bugs and their crew. You've got the like Woody Woodpecker and Betty Boop and Droopy Dog and a few others that wouldn't normally but are not like just, it's not just two big companies. It's not just Disney and Warner or whatever. It's they kind of went a little further than that and got some classic ones. Betty Boop is a really interesting one because I mean maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe in the 80s she was still on TV to some extent, but in my experience, in my limited experience, doesn't have the same staying power as like a Mickey Mouse or even like a Popeye or something, which didn't make an appearance in this movie. But it is really, I love that aspect of it. That's my favorite thing about this movie, the fact that they got these people to come together, and it is just a good, solid, like, Amblin entertainment film. It feels like a Zemeckis and or Spielberg production in every way, and they got the cooperation of these companies to use these characters too. On top of it, it's a good movie even without that aspect. But
I
that
agree.
Just takes the cake for me.
I had forgotten that Zemeckis directed it. I think I knew it somewhere in the back of my brain. So I'm looking at the way that it's filmed, and I'm like, this is very professional. Like, the way the everything is precisely planned. And I think it has to be, to make sure that the animation blends well together, and which still looks wonderful. But I was like, this feels like Zemeckis or Spielberg. It's very deliberate. Zemeckis has like a deliberate flow, I guess, to the camera. Like everything is always kind of like everything's kind of always in motion. There's always like a sweeping feel to a Zemeckis film. And so not sweeping like Ben-Hur sweeping, but like the camera's always kind of moving.
Physicality, a movement.
That's right. There's always some kind of crane shot or steady cam or something, and so I just I knew it was him before I looked it up, and I like that this movie kind of leaves that mark for him. For him, I like it. Yeah. And honest to God, I cannot find the movie I am looking for, and it is driving me crazy. Wow. I did it for I watched it for Academy Rewind. That's why it's driving me crazy, because I log every one of those movies, and it's maybe you can help me out. Maybe you know which one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
tell me.
It's the movie. It's not Mildred Pierce because I already used that one.
Yeah.
It's not Gaslight. But it's a noir. It's a noir film, and it's a guy like is convinced to. It's like for an insurance scam.
Double Indemnity.
He's Double Indemnity. Thank you.
As soon as you said insurance, I was like, "That's it. I got it."
Yeah. Frank's like, I know insurance. Like,
I know double
I'm very
indemnity,
cautious.
too.
I know insurance. Yeah, Double Indemnity. It plays with that model of, she's the bad dame.
Yes,
it
it does. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, and I really like that because we're told early, like, oh, she's no good, blah blah blah. Roger, you got to get out of there.
Right.
I was also weirdly when Valiant's taking pictures of Jessica Rabbit and they're like making sounds, I was like, kids movie. Oh my God. And then they're just playing patty cake and I was like, by God, this is amazing. That is really what sold me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, you just keep subverting. I don't know if this is true or not, but I kept thinking, so Bob Hoskins plays Valiant, right? Detective Valiant, and he kind of like comes in to save the day. And I was thinking, so I was wondering if his name is actually a play on Prince Valiant, like the knight who comes in to like save everyone, because that would be of the era that they're in right there in the 40s. And so I'm not sure if that had any leaning on anything, or that his name is just Valiant. Like, he's the hero. It tells you it's in his name.
I didn't even think
which
of
is
Prince.
also.
I didn't think of Prince Valiant per se. I thought of it more just like, this is to tell you he's the hero, the same way that like when the villain shows up, he's wearing black. But
that's right, and it's the ironic twist on like, my name's Valiant and I don't want to work for you. I'm drunk. I'm this. I'm all. Yeah. I loved it very much. I'm glad that you made me watch it because it's been on my radar for a while, and I've just never really had a reason to sit down and watch it. So I loved that I had a reason to do it.
Nice.
So thank you.
I am glad you enjoyed it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a really interesting, like, historical film achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a solid piece of filmmaking. Also, for those interested, there was a okay video game for the original Nintendo that I had as a kid and enjoyed a fair bit. It's okay. It's fine. It's not the most inventive game ever, but if you're an old NES fan, the Who Framed Roger Rabbit game is a classic.
I did not ever play that, but I weirdly remember the box in Blockbuster.
Nice.
How fun is that?
Were there a lot of... Wait, you remember it from when you worked at Blockbuster or just from going to Blockbuster?
Going to Blockbuster as a kid.
I'm like, you still had NES games when you worked there? Because that seems...
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, no. But I remember going as a kid.
Sure.
And seeing them.
But
yeah, that was great. That was really wonderful. Thank you for making me watch that.
I'm glad.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I will watch it again. Like, no question.
Right? Yeah.
This
is my second time seeing it, and I expect I'll see it again. It's a lot of fun. But I would love to hear from all of you what you think. What do you remember the Who Framed Roger Rabbit game? Do you love the movie? Do you hate the movie? You can tell us in an iTunes review. Go on over to Apple Podcasts and look up Beer with Geeks. You can do it there or anywhere else you find podcasts. Leave us a rating or review. You can email us and let us know what you think. beerwithgeeks@gmail.com or @beerwithgeeks on Twitter, if that's more your speed. And you can also become a patron and support us. And if you want to leave us a comment there, that's another place you can tell us about it. If you want to do that, it's patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. You can find all, if that's a lot of information I just threw at you, go to beerwithgeeks.com. Everything you need is there. The links to all of those things, the links to subscribe, the links to our other shows on the Thought Bubble Audio Network. You'll find all of that stuff there at beerwithgeeks.com. So keep it simple on yourself and head on over there. I think that's those are the things. If you like movie talk, if you like hearing Tim talk about movies, Academy Rewind's a great place to do that.
It is actually. There's an episode coming up this season that is going to be released starting next month. But there's a movie in one of the episodes that I'm going to get yelled at for not seeing it.
Ooh,
now.
Excited. That's a good tease.
Like bigger than Roger Rabbit. The fact that I have not seen this movie is pretty sad. But I'm looking forward to. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm looking forward to watching it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, I look forward. I'm looking forward to that now.
That's good. You'll know it when you get there.
I'm
too.
sure I
You'll be
will.
Like, ooh, why haven't you seen that? That's so bad. It's so bad. It's like being like, I don't know. I think it would be like being born in the late 80s or early 90s and not seeing Mrs. Doubtfire or something like that. Like you're like, ooh, wait, where were you?
Yeah. How'd you miss that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. Well, check out Academy Rewind if you wanna hear how that goes. I think those are all the places. But thanks, Tim, for watching the film, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, I thought you, as a film connoisseur and as someone who is a master of film, quite literally, you have a degree to prove it.
It's right there. It's behind me.
Right there behind you. Name on the wall. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate it, and I'm glad you did. So, good stuff.
Thank you. Well, Frank, it was a pleasure to talk to you. And so until next time, cheers.
Cheers.